Hello once again, this is Patriarch, and this is the 2023 AT Thru Hike Reflections video number 4. There's a few other items I'd like to share with you, things I've been pondering and thinking about since the completion of my hike last November. So we'll go ahead and get started and try and knock down through this list. So the first topic I want to talk about today are some of the hard or really challenging experiences that I had and the memories that I have, and also some of the rewarding ones that I have of my trail experience. So let's start with the challenging ones first. I'm going to refer to a list because I have a number of these here, so let's go ahead and get started. Probably the first major challenge that I faced was really the hard thing to do was having to leave the trail after the first 11 days on the trail, just due to a medical procedure that I needed to have done. So I had to return home. I'd gotten to Franklin, North Carolina, and ended up having to return home, and I was off trail for 9 days, and then had to come back and pick it up where I left off. That was challenging. That was hard to do. I had not planned on that interruption to the hike. As it turned out, it worked out just fine. And got to stay at a different hostel. I was at the Onward hostel. My neighbor over there sees me out here recording. I stayed at the Onward hostel. When I returned, I was at Chica and Sunsets when I left, and that was a great experience. But it was a challenging experience to get off the trail and then come back on again. The second thing that I wanted to talk about was trying to keep up with the plan that I had for the hike, and finally having to accept the fact that I was not going to be able to stick to the plan. that was really hard to do to begin with, because it was kind of a lot of pressure to do that, to keep up with it. People would ask me, where are you going to be, kind of where are you at on the trail, where do you plan to be at so-and-so at such and such a date. Originally when I went, I had a plan, and after about 3 days, that plan was out the window. As I mentioned before, Farrell, who was a guy that I follow on YouTube, retired Navy officer, and he had this expression. He said, planning is everything, the plan is nothing. And so going through the exercise of planning is important so that you know what your options are. But the plan itself is always going to be subject to change. That was hard. Another hard memory, or difficult memory, challenging memory, was when I broke my first trekking pole. And then the subsequent times when I also broke my trekking pole again and again and again. I think I broke my trekking pole probably 4 times over the course of, I believe it was 4 times over the course of my hike. At least that set of trekking poles. I mentioned before in a previous video, I went through 4 sets of trekking poles. And ended up with the one black diamond aluminum poles. But that was a really hard experience. That was challenging. Some of the water fordings that I encountered, particularly in New Hampshire and Maine, I guess Maine in particular, were really challenging and were tough. They were hard. Sometimes a little scary even. And I'd heard stories of some hikers who had fallen in, who had been rescued by another hiker who was with them. In the one case in Vermont, there was a hiker last year, Steady Eddie, who lost his life due to flooding in Vermont. And I was hiking with another hiker, his name was Kelly. She and I were camped at the confluence of the 2 streams, right where Steady Eddie had been washed away downstream. And the afternoon of the day that we were there, they had actually found his body about 2 miles downstream, along with some of his equipment sort of strewn along the way. And so that was kind of a surreal experience. But it was hard on some of those stream crossings that I encountered. That one was not challenging at that time of year, but other crossings in Maine were pretty tough and were pretty hard. Mount Katahdin itself really hard. That is a climb. That is a climb, both up and down. But that, what else can I say? For most thru hikers, that's the culmination of their hike, and it's a big challenge. The weather was a challenge and was often hard, whether it was rain or cold or wind. I didn't run into very much snow. Once in a while, I guess I ran into some snow that would be spitting in the air, but the weather itself was often challenging. You just learn to go with it. Much of the trail is very hard. This is not a hike for everyone. I wouldn't recommend this hike for everyone. Not for the faint of heart, definitely. So if you're going to do it, you really have to be committed to getting ready for it. I'll talk about advice for hikers a little bit later on as well. And another thing that was really challenging were some of the huge, absolutely huge steps that you had to take, or rocks that you had to step up onto when you were climbing up a mountain or coming down, either one. And so again, hard, challenging, sometimes scary, especially the coming down parts when it was super steep or the rocks were slick or there was nothing to hang on to on the side, no trees on the side of the trail that you could grab and ease yourself down to the next level where your foot would land on the ground. So those are some of the hard and challenging memories that I have. The ones that stand out anyway. There's lots of them. Rewarding. Let's talk about rewarding memories. First of all, completing the AT in and of itself, super rewarding. Even though it wasn't in the way that I had originally intended, to actually complete the trail, immensely rewarding. As I mentioned before, also the wildflowers. I can't believe how enamored I was with the wildflowers along the trail. Absolutely gorgeous. It was something that I was not expecting, but immensely rewarding for me. Another thing was the feeling that I had, especially later on in the hike, of being healthy and fit. I mentioned I lost close to 30 pounds by the time I was done. Probably lost about 35 at the maximum there in Northern Virginia, and then put some of it back on. But feeling healthy, feeling fit was just awesome, just amazing. And so, and the other thing, it sort of goes along with that, is knowing that I was doing something that relatively few people do, not only in the course of a year, but ever in their lifetime. How many people do you know have through hiked, the Appalachian Trail or any of the major long trails? 2,200 miles, that's a long ways. That is a long ways, especially for folks my age. Like I said before, I turned 70 on the trail, and so this is something that I consider for myself a major achievement. Rewarding also, Mount Katahdin. Not only was it challenging, super rewarding as well. And so that was it goes on both sides of the equation for the hard and rewarding. Rewarding the people, just the whole Appalachian Trail community. The people were just absolutely amazing. When I started my hike, the beginning of the hike, even though it was raining that day on March 2nd of 2023, when my friend Ron and I were there at Amicalola Falls State Park, beginning the approach trail. And then we got up to Springer Mountain that afternoon. That was super rewarding. I had been dreaming about that for a long, long time. And to finally get there and know that my hike had started, extremely rewarding. The iconic landmarks that I encountered along the way. Again, I'd watched videos of other hikers in previous years who had done the hike and envisioned myself at being at those places. Most of them are still there. One in particular I remember was an icon of the trail, and that was the Over Mountain Shelter. No longer there. They tore it down. I was one the last year probably to see that particular landmark still on the landscape on the trail, and so I was grateful that it was still there when I went through. It was an iconic piece of the trail, and I'm super grateful and felt rewarded for having done that. And the trail names, getting one myself, as well as being able to associate with people with trail names that had special meaning. And I smile when I think about them, because I remember the stories that are associated with the trail names of the folks that I hiked with or met on the trail. What a rewarding experience that was, to get to know these people and to learn the story behind them. So those are a few of the really challenging and rewarding memories that I have of my hike on the trail last year. Another topic I wanted to talk about was illness and injury on the trail, these memories that I have from that. I mentioned before that I was only sick once on the trail. I took a 00 in the Shenandoah National Park at Elkton, Virginia, and just did no hiking for 2 days. I was coughing almost uncontrollably. I just couldn't stop. It was just sapping my energy, interrupting my progress on the trail. So I took the 00 and not quite fully recovered from that, but got back on the trail on the third day, and I was well enough to keep going, and it was really never sick again after that. So that was really I'd never had norovirus, and I saw other hikers who did. Sleepwalker was one that I saw who had that just past Irwin, Tennessee, and he did not look good. We just left Uncle Johnny's down there, but he got sick, and they had to, the sheriff's department had to come out and rescue him off the mountain, off the trail, to take him back down. But fortunately, I didn't suffer from any of that. In terms of injuries, I really only had one serious injury. Yeah, I fell and I scraped, and cuts and bruises and that sort of thing. But I was going up South Twin Mountain in New Hampshire, and one of the things that you learn to do is when you start to fall, you jettison your trekking poles. You get rid of them. You don't want to be hanging on to them, because there's more chance of you getting injured by hanging on to them than by getting rid of them. And then you just learn to roll. Just roll down the mountain if you have to. But I tried to get rid of my trekking poles, and what happened was on this hand here, the pole got stuck right between those, and it just tweaked my hand like that, kind of sprained my hand. It hurt a lot because I couldn't get rid of the pole fast enough. And I never wore the straps over my wrist either on a trekking pole. But it sort of kind of sprained my hand there. It was really sore. My hand swelled up. It was swollen for probably a couple of months. I still had mobility. I could still use my fingers and everything, and I didn't want to go to the doctor because I didn't want the doctor to tell me that I needed to get off the trail and have it in a splint for a while. So I just kept hiking. But and it turned out to be okay. Yeah, I still have some feeling of that. It's probably still a little bit swollen from before. Maybe there's some scar tissue in there. I don't know. But anyway, that was really the only injury that I had. Lots of hikers will take what we call vitamin I. They'll take ibuprofen to try and deal with the aches and pains of hiking. I think I took ibuprofen maybe twice during the entire trail. You just learn to deal with the everyday aches and pains of hiking, and for me of older age as well that come along with it. But I was trying very hard not to rely on medication to deal with that. I wanted to be able to sense what my body was feeling, and so that's what I did. The other thing that I wanted to mention was that since I was a hammock camper, I slept in a hammock every night, and as a result, my back never hurt at all. When I sleep on the ground, or even on a bed for that matter, my back is always pretty stiff when I get up in the morning. When I sleep in a hammock, it never happens. It doesn't happen. I sleep way better in a hammock than I do in a bed, and that was a real benefit for me as a hiker, to have a back that felt good in the morning when I got up. And so that was kind of the extent of injuries and illnesses for me. Yeah, we'll just leave it at that. Another topic I wanted to talk about was what I term good decisions. Now, there's really too many of those to enumerate, but I began to get into the habit of recognizing when I had made a good decision. This usually occurred late in the day. The sun was going down, I was getting tired, I could feel fatigue setting in, and you had to make a determination as to whether or not you were going to hike on, perhaps to the next road crossing or the next campsite, or if you're going to pull up for the day and maybe just stealth camp somewhere. And as it turned out, whenever, I would just listen to my gut, basically. And in most cases, I would pull up. In fact, in pretty much every case, I would pull up. And then the next day, when I would start hiking, as I went further down the trail, it would become abundantly evident that that was a good decision on my part to stop. The trail ahead would have been super challenging, difficult to navigate, especially with the diminishing light and with fatigue setting in as well. So those kinds of of opportunities to make good decisions were abundant. And I would suggest that if you're hiking the trail, listen to your gut. Rather than just trying to push on just to get somewhere because you think you need to be there to stay on schedule. Don't risk it. Don't risk it. The decision to take zeros and Neros were also good decisions. I remember, I think I maybe shared the story about the hiker that I met on the Superior Hiking Trail, Toothpick, from Virginia, and he said, don't ignore zeros because they're important for your body. I learned fairly quickly to recognize when my body needed a zero and to basically listen to that and say, okay, maybe it wasn't part of the original plan to do this, but taking a zero was a good idea. Or making a short day, a Nero, was also welcome for me. In terms of the blue blazing the trail, there were some instances where I did choose to take a blue blaze trail instead of the regular white blaze trail. Sometimes for safety, sometimes just because it made more sense to do that. I didn't do that very often, but I did do it probably on maybe half a dozen occasions or less. I'd probably count on one hand the number of times that I took a blue blaze trail, which was a bypass trail, instead of taking the regular white blazed trail of the Appalachian Trail. You know, one of the other things, good decisions, excuse me, was there were some reroutes that were listed last year in 2023 on the trail for possible dangers on the trail, either high rivers or bridges that were out, things like that. And depending on what the experiences were of other hikers that I read about in Far Out, or even just what the day was like, I chose several times to ignore those reroutes and to go on the original trail. Good decisions they were, every one of them. The two that I remember in particular was when I was able to go up and see the Audie Murphy Memorial, the grave. It's not a grave, but it's a memorial to Audie Murphy there in North Carolina. That section of trail had actually been rerouted around. I chose to ignore the reroute and go up the trail instead. It was absolutely perfect. It was great. The stream crossing that they were concerned about, where the bridge had washed out, wasn't even ankle deep, and probably not more than 30 feet across, if even that, maybe even less than that. So it was absolutely a good decision to go see that memorial that I had wanted to see. It was one of those things I had told myself that I wanted to do on the trails, to see that. The other one that I remember was Bear Mountain, New York. Going up Bear Mountain. That trail had been closed across the whole mountain, basically. And again, bending the rules just a little bit, I just stepped over the tape and just continued on the trail and went up Bear Mountain and down Bear Mountain, and it was fine. Yeah, you could see where inexperienced hikers might have a little difficulty, especially on the descending edge going north, the descending side of the mountain going north. But coming up the south side, not a problem at all. Good decision again, because I saw some views there that I would otherwise would have been denied had I chosen to follow the reroute on the trail. For me, another good decision was not to slack pack. I mentioned this before as well, and not that I'm opposed to slack packing. I was just not wanting to do it myself, because for me it was a sense of achievement that for me was more fulfilling if I knew that I had carried my full kit, my full pack, the entire distance on the trail and had not slack packed at all. Again, the only exception was going up Mount Katahdin and back down when I summited Katahdin. That was the only day that I would consider having slack packed at all, not carrying all the gear that I had. Every other day that I was on the trail, the rest of the 212 days, I had all my stuff with me. And so I felt really good about that, and that, for me, that was a good decision. Not for everybody, but for me it was. The double zero in Shenandoah National Park was good, and learning how to ask for help and asking for help, those were good decisions. When I realized that there was something that I needed help with from someone else or outside of the resources that I had, asking for help was always a good decision. And then finally, as I got toward the end of my hike, deciding to take advantage of more frequent off-trail housing opportunities, especially as the season got later in the year, the weather was turning colder, not always great weather, but I took more advantage of staying in hiker host homes or hostels or an occasional hotel or motel somewhere. I did that more often as I got toward the end of my hike. Those are all good decisions as well. And so the whole concept of good decisions, I think, is something that I learned to appreciate over the course of my hike last year. Another topic that often comes up in reflecting on completing a trail is post-hike depression. Fortunately for myself, I didn't have any. I didn't have any post-hike depression. And I think there were probably several reasons for that. I'll postulate what those might be anyway, but one of them is that, first of all, I'm retired, so I didn't have the stress of coming back to a job and having to re-engage with a job like other hikers may have to do, or finding a job if they had left a previous job or quit it or something like that, to actually go under the stress of finding another job can add to a depressive state of mind. So I didn't have to do that. Secondly, I have lots of hobbies. I mean, lots of hobbies. And these are interests that I have developed over the course of my life, which in hindsight is wisdom for me, because when I got home, I did not lack for things to do. Even though I didn't have a job to go to, I had lots of hobbies that I'd cultivated prior to that, and I was sort of looking forward to getting back to doing it again. I'm a wood turner. Well, I like backpacking as well, but then there were even some new ones that I had picked up, some new hobbies that I had picked up or had started before I left on my hike. I enrolled in a couple of art courses, and I still am working on those and have to complete those, and those are a lot of fun. Writing the book is, doing these videos and writing a book, those are other things that I was looking forward to doing as well. So I had things to occupy my time that were constructive, rewarding, uplifting, and so I really didn't feel the drop, I think, that some hikers do when they complete the trail. The other reason that I would postulate might be a reason that I didn't suffer from post-hike depression is that the actual end of my hike was sort of anticlimactic in a sense, since I had already summited Mount Katahdin on September 1st and then had been off trail for 3.5 weeks, and then came back and did those last two sections, eastern New Hampshire, western Maine, and then down to do New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, and Pennsylvania, and Massachusetts to finish my hike at Mount Greylock. And so I finished a little bit differently, and so finishing at Greylock, while I think it was a great choice to finish there, since I couldn't actually wait that long. Katahdin would have been closed by November 10th, and so I just couldn't do that. But because I finished in a little bit different order, and it wasn't, I had the celebration of summiting and coming down off of Katahdin already, and so that was something that I had already experienced, and then took the break off the trail, came back on the trail. Yes, it was wonderful to be done and to claim the title of AT Thru hiker, which is something that I'm very happy to have done. But the level of excitement was diminished, I should say, as compared to someone who perhaps at the end of their hike actually summits Katahdin and comes back down. I think it's a different feeling. And I could see that in the faces of those hikers for whom that was their experience when I was on Katahdin as well. So although it was nice to be done, the level of excitement, I think, was diminished, and therefore the drop was not as severe either when I completed my hike, as opposed to if it had been, finishing at Katahdin. It wasn't as much of a high to come down off of. And so again, those are just theories, I guess, that I have of the reason that I didn't suffer from post-hike depression. Not that I recommend that kind of a route for folks, because summiting Katahdin and finishing there is magnificent. But post-hike depression is a reality for a significant number of hikers. Something to be aware of if you're thinking about doing a thru hike of the Appalachian Trail. Well, I thought I was going to be able to get all of the reflections topics in that I wanted to in this fourth reflections video, but obviously that's not going to happen. I've already gone on longer than I had wanted to, and I still have 4 more topics to go. So we'll close it out for this particular video, and and come back with a reflections video number 5 as well, and finish up these thoughts that I've got, these reflections that I have. So with that, this is Patriarch, wishing everybody a great day, and stay green and keep growing.